Welcome, I'm Dragon, and today I will be showing you my thoughts and opinions about this Ender-3 Pro. I got it on January 9th, so I've had around 2.5 months to play around with it to make this video. And no, this is not my first printer. My first printer was a Prusa Mini, which I got sometime around September. And before we move on, I just want to mention how compact this packaging was. Very nice. Okay, so for the setup was actually pretty smooth. It took me about an hour to 2 hours, and I occasionally used a YouTube video to help me if I had a little issues, which I totally recommend if you get one of these to do the same if you have anything that you're not sure how the instructions go, because the instructions aren't always the best, but they are good enough, for the most part. So the first thing I printed on this printer ended up being a little volcano, and this turned out pretty well, and I didn't see any issues. And the detail for this $200 printer was pretty superb. But unfortunately, I very quickly ran into issues when printing anything circular or anything that had strange shapes, and pretty much anything that didn't have squares, which was very strange because I had never experienced this on my Prusa Mini. Like most issues that you haven't experienced on a 3D printer, it ended up taking around 8 to 10 hours to finally solve it, mainly researching issues. The one good news about that was that meant that when another issue does occur, it doesn't take as long to actually solve the issue. And for that issue, it ended up being kind of a silly thing. I just had to tighten the x-axis, which was very helpful that it was a simple fix because I didn't really want to have to go buy some parts to replace it because that would have been pretty annoying. But speaking of new parts, I did end up having to go get a new bed because their bed that they send you is not very good in the slightest. If you print anything big and you try to get it off, it sticks so well that if you try to poke at it, it ruins the bed, or if you try to peel it off, it bends the bed and then it creates these annoying lines on the bottom of new prints. So I'd recommend just getting a new bed right off the bat when you order this printer, and I would recommend a glass bed from Amazon or something that has the same dimensions. Mainly because it's the cheapest bed that you can really find, and it works pretty well. And with the old bed, I was actually able to print the cable chains to protect the cables. And other than those issues early on, I actually haven't had very many issues with this printer, other than a clogged nozzle, which happens to everyone, and they are always a pain to fix. And for $200, I'd say this is actually pretty sweet. I've been using it for around 100 to 200 hours of printing times in these 2.5 months, mainly printing snowflakes and hearts to sell on Etsy, which is actually how I was able to get this Ender-3 in the first place. But since snowflakes and hearts kind of slowed down around a month ago, I've been using it for just miscellaneous things and printing what I've been wanting. So I've been printing a decent amount on this printer, but now for the moment that you've all been wanting, let's print a Benchy and compare it to my other printers. Well, there you have it. Here is the Benchy printed on this Ender-3. Overall, it looks really good. There are a couple lines that you could see very clearly, but some reason most printers I've seen have those lines. I'm not exactly sure what it is. Maybe it's something that could be fixed, but basically everything else looks great. And when comparing this Benchy to every other Benchy, they basically all look the same, from the Ender-3, the CR10, the Prusa Mini, and the Ender-5, which is pretty surprising, meaning that the quality-wise you can make them all look really good. But before you go buy a CR10, I will mention that the first layer on the Benchy kind of spreads out and creates these weird bumps, but that might just have to do with the bed. So there we have it. The Ender-3 is definitely a pretty good printer, though I will say if you're looking for a 3D printer right now, and you were willing to pay a little extra, I'd still go with the Prusa Mini. I still find it more reliable, but if you're willing to tweak the Ender-3 and make it a good printer, then totally go for it. It's definitely a nice addition for 3D printing, and would even work as a first printer as long as you go in with the expectation that you might have more issues than if you were to get a different printer, at least at the beginning. And with that, I hope you found this video useful. There should be a video on the CR10 and Ender-5 coming soon. Well, I'll see you next time. Bye!